Alrighty, new arrival from VUCA Simulations, one that so very excited to receive, but was kind of intimidated by, and wasn't sure if this game was going to be for me or not. And it really was thanks to the Wargame YouTube community that convinced me to take the plunge on this one and reading up about it. This is a operational hex encounter game about specifically the opening months of World War I in 1914. So you could say that this is basically a game that would be directly competing or directly in the same space as Offensive Outrance from GMT from 2012, Mike Resch's design, which I have yet to play. I'm going to get to it at some point, but I have on this channel shown you the Serbia version of that system, as well as Galicia and the Italian front, Burning Mountains, all of that in the same kind of series. 1914 Nach Paris is a new game that kind of tackles that same subject, basically August to, I believe, the end of September of 1914, so the opening sort of 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks of World War I, on the Western Front specifically, not globally, Western Front. And obviously it's another great production from VUCA Simulations. I'm not going to go do like a complete in-depth unboxing. There have been many of these already from some YouTubers who have gotten advanced copies from VUCA. Hipshot, Kev did a really good one if you want to go check it out. But I did want to just point out some of the things that really appealed to me about this game, and about the production as well. So first of all, VUCA is doing some amazing work right now. Their games have just an incredible quality about them. It's a German company run by two German guys, I believe. And the combination of graphic design and user interface for their games is really interesting, and the quality of the components as well. So this is a 3-inch box, as you can see, very evocative cover image. You've got all of these what look to be French soldiers on the train, or maybe German soldiers on the train. I guess they would be German since this is a German here. But yeah, the war is going to be over by Christmas. It'll be great. We're heading to Paris. We're going to knock the French out of the war. You got some of the side stuff here. Not as thick as other VUCA simulation boxes, but that's okay. Inside, I want to just show you some of the things I really like. I'm not going to take you through everything. First of all, it's a D20 system, which is really interesting. You don't see a lot of D20 wargame systems, which is cool. I can't wait to check it out. You've got some small maps, and one of the things that I really like about this game is that in addition to the main campaign map, which I think is 2.5 maps large, you've got these smaller maps. Actually, it's probably about 3 maps. So these smaller maps are kind of like additions to the full front map. And then you've got learning game maps as well, which I'll show you. So this is the sort of Strasbourg area. The one thing I did notice about this particular map, I think it's this one. Is that like the printing is not as, it's like it was a little bit offset. So like some of the text has like a weird drop shadow to it that it shouldn't have. It's just not as crisp as the rest of the maps in the box, but it's not a huge deal because you can't really tell unless you get really close. But you can kind of maybe see here the way that the text is kind of a little blurry around the edges. It's almost like the printer that printed on this was misaligned. But anyways, these maps are really nice. They're sort of the same kind of like linen finish quality that you may have seen in my unboxing for the Musket and Pike Dual Pack. If war games are moving to a linen finish map system, I am all for it. It is really nice to touch and feel. Not sure if you can see kind of you can see a little bit up here, but it's just really nice. It's not just paper, which is cool. So you've got these 2 half maps, which are going to be like sort of edge addendums to different parts, I believe. This one is going to go kind of up in this direction. And they're going to connect to the 2 full-size maps, which are in here. The art is very well done. The designer of this game, Bertrand Meunier, he's done a lot of research into World War I. This game has been in design for a long time. Here you can see Paris. But in general, I really like the fact that they've printed a lot of the locations with like the color palette here. Some parts of the map actually have the text flipped both ways, so depending on which side you're sitting, like you can see... actually, it probably goes like this. Some of the text is flipped both directions, so if you're sitting on either side of the table, you can still read what's on the map. But in general, it's a very nice art style for the map. It's got the font is very period evocative, and again, nice linen finish. So there's 2 full-size maps plus the 2 map extensions. You've got the scenario book. There are 12 scenarios in this game, and I'm going to set that aside for a second. We'll come back to the scenarios. But I will say that most of the scenarios in this game are small learning scenarios. And what's really cool, again, this is a VUCA simulations thing. What they really do, they tell you how many turns, how many counters in the scenario, how long it would take to play, and on what map you're going to play it on. I love the way they've organized this. I don't know if it's just like sort of the German kind of tendency to be very organized, but like this is fantastic. This is a scenario booklet that is extremely player friendly. The one thing I did want to mention is that The campaign scenario, that's sort of that's the game in here. And this is what it looks like when all the maps are put out. That is a 22 turn, 27 hour, they say, undertaking. But I can't wait to do that at some point. But we're going to come back to that in a second. This is not an easy game. This is a pretty complex game. Here's the rule book. I would say it's probably on par with Offensiva Outrance. There's a lot of interesting novel concepts in here. The other thing I wanted to mention here is the counters, how much information is on every counter. A lot of people have said they look really busy or they're hard to read, but I actually think what they've done here is actually pretty smart. All the info you need about a unit, all the state of the unit that you need is going to be on these counters. Number of steps, movement points, movement types, unit types, combat factor, artillery factor. So one of my big complaints about Offensiva Outrance was it was really hard to read the game state. I'm hoping with this game, because the counters are so detailed, that you're going to get a much clearer picture of the game state at any particular time. You can see some headquarters units here. But this is a long rule book. It's 36 pages, and it's very nicely illustrated. There's lots of nice examples, but there's some really novel concepts for this type of game. So like I said, this is an operational hex and counter game. There's a pretty comprehensive artillery sequence in this game, and based on who you're attacking, the artillery effects are going to be different. So whether you're bombarding units or bombarding fortresses, there's also, interestingly, unit facing in this game. So even though we're talking about potentially division-sized units, I believe those are the largest size of units in the game, they have facing. And so the designer has said that this sort of more represents the historical accuracy of frontage in World War I and where attacks come from. So it's not just a static line where every side of the hex is sort of like there's units there. You really have to pay attention to how your units are stacked and faced in this game, which I think will add some weight to the playability. Here you can see, based on which way they're facing and what size of the unit they are, what their zones of control do. So again, a lot of granularity here that sort of takes established war game concepts to like the next level. Yeah, I'm excited to see how this plays out. It's really rare to see an operational game of this scale have unit facing, but I think it does make sense in World War I for the way that, especially the maneuver part of the opening parts of the war how that would have had an effect on offensive operations. But there's a lot in here. I'm not going to go through it all. Here's just a 2-page example of railroad networks. Some really interesting concepts, lines of communication. There's lots of different unit types. There's fog of war optional rules, recon. You can do aerial recon, which is pretty interesting. It's going to be a learning process to learn to play this. But again, when I come back to the scenario book, I'm going to show you why I think this game has done a really smart thing. Here's the combat table and how you use the combat table. Here's the bombardment table based on who you're bombarding, a fortification or units. A lot of little reminder things, movement, capacity, force march, and training. It's a really nice player aid. Again, it's got a linen quality to it. Lots of information. I really like the graphic design here. The differences between colors, fonts, layout. I mean, the guys at VUCA are doing amazing work in terms of just overhauling war game user experience. It's an important part of learning a game, right? Or interfacing with a game. And I think that's one of the places where war games can take huge strides to become much more widely adopted and popular. So there's 2 of these in here. We got the counters. You can see these probably in someone else's video. Let me just pull these out so I can get to what's underneath. But they're really nice VUCA quality stuff, individually rounded already, different colors. You've got the French. Here's the Germans, or these look like Dutch there. Dutch? Where are the Germans? No, they're Germans, excuse me. That's the German flag. So they're just really nicely done. Lots of information, like I said. Here's the fog of war markers, some informational counters. 10 sheets of counters here. And again, linen quality finish on the front, which is pretty nice. Really excited to dig in and play this at some point. Okay, so here's where we get to talking about how VUCA has, with this game and the designer, have really made it really easy to get into. So first of all, you've got setup cards. Here's the campaign setup with all of the units that are going to start the game on the map. You've got 2 sheets for that. Really great. Then you've got this game turn track, which is nice. You're going to need some table space though, great? This is a separate sheet. Then you've got this fortifications menu. So every different fortification on the map has got its own unique values for a lot of things. And it tells you where, sort of what region these fortifications are. This is like a level of granularity to World War I that you don't usually see in sort of games, really. But this is intense, right? Because you've got what kind of category of fort, combat factor, artillery factor, a whole bunch of stuff where each fort is unique. So that's why you need kind of this reference card. It goes all the way to the back. There's the German forts. So clearly some research has been put into this game to make it a simulation. This seems much more of a simulation. Now, here's where we get to some great stuff. So you've got the setup sheets for all the different learning scenarios in the game. And there are, I think, 8 or 9 learning scenarios that are single A4 size maps, and we'll get those on the bottom of the stack. But you can see, not only does it tell you where the unit's set up, but it tells you how to set up all of the markers for the scenario, which is great. 3 and 4 on here. You've got 5 and 6. And a lot of these learning scenarios are really small. I mean, you'll be playing these in an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours for some of the bigger ones. But like the sortie from Antwerp, the siege of Maubeuge, like, you know, this is a very few units on the map that you're playing with here. You know, Battle of Charleroi, much bigger. Mons, there's a Mons scenario here, small number of units. You're going to have the British in that one. Battle of the Meuse, and then the operations in Alsace-Lorraine. That's when you get into some of the bigger stuff. Here's the Battle of the Marne, that's scenario 11. And here's the German setup for scenarios 9, 10, and 11 as well. And then we come to all of the learning scenario maps. So this is what you're going to play on. When you play scenario 1, it's going to slowly introduce you to concepts, the basic concepts, and you're just going to play on this single A4 sheet of paper, which is fantastic. You don't have to have the whole map set out. You're going to be able to fit this on a small table and learn the game. Again, scenario 2, the assault on Liège, just Liège and the surrounding areas, right? And it goes on. Scenario 3, you're looking at attack on Namur. Here's an even smaller one, around the marshes of Saint-Gond, which is like almost, this would be 2/3 of an A4 sheet. This one's even smaller, the siege of Maubeuge. I'm guessing this one teaches you a lot about assault artillery on like a big fortified position. So not a lot of maneuver going to be happening here, but you'll get to learn the rules slowly as you make your way through the opening weeks of World War I. Here's the sortie from Antwerp. And so on and so forth. I love that they have done this. I love that they have taken the time to print separate maps that you can play with small counter densities and learn the mechanics of the game. And so you play the first 9 scenarios, and by that point, theoretically, you should be able to play the entire campaign from beginning to end, because you've experienced every type of situation that you can get into in the game and how those situations will work, and then layer those on top of the larger strategic picture of what's happening. So I just can't give enough credit to VUCA Simulations. If you haven't checked out any of their games, you should definitely do that. They are sort of paving the way to make war games more accessible to gamers in a way that I think is probably not as intuitive as you might think. It's all about the visual presentation. It's all about the synthesizing of information into a visual format that makes the accessibility and learning how to play complex games a lot easier, taking away that friction. And obviously, when you're playing the game, having really nice components doesn't hurt either. So that is a look at 1914 Nach Paris, and I just, again, wanted to mention the way that the scenarios are laid out here with the way that it describes everything is super cool. This is really thoughtful production, and yeah, check out VUCA Simulations games. Donnerschlag is one of their new games as well. This is the newest. Donnerschlag is World War II. They've got a nice World War II system that I picked up from them, and then I hope they keep putting stuff out, because what they're doing is knocking it out of the park. Thanks for watching. If you are playing or picking up Nach Paris 1914 or 1914 Nach Paris, let me know. I will be trying to get this to the table for the channel, hopefully before the end of the year. But if not, maybe early next. And we'll go through some of the smaller scenarios as we check it out. Very unique system, very well researched game by Bertrand Meunier. Thanks for watching.